What's the latest on the Israel-Hamas war? Substantial escalations continue between Israel and Hezbollah, with the IDF assassinating one of Hezbollah's most senior military commanders. Reports that Israel is planning to continue these escalations while fighting is still raging in the Gaza Strip. The UN has passed a resolution that includes certain weapons embargoes on Israel. Germany has announced it is suspending new weapons exports to the country. I'm Alon Burstein. Let's dive into the latest on the Israel-Hamas war. On day 350 to the war, the major news relates to the increasing escalations between Israel and Hezbollah. On Friday, September 20th, the IDF carried out a major airstrike in the Dahya region of Beirut, assassinating Ibrahim Akil. Akil was the commander in charge of all of Hezbollah's military operations, and reportedly he was also acting as the de facto Hezbollah chief of staff after the assassination of Fuad Shukr at the end of July. He was also the overarching commander of the Radwan force. Those are Hezbollah's commando units that are the equivalent of Hamas's Nukhba force that carried out the October 7th attack. And he was also wanted by the United States, who had put the price of $7 million for any information that would lead to his capture. According to reports, Akil was released from hospital in Lebanon, where he was being treated for injuries he sustained during the walkie-talkie explosions that occurred in Lebanon on Wednesday, and he was assassinated during a meeting that was being held with other top-ranking officials within the Radwan units. Al Jazeera reported that at least 20 people were taking part in that meeting, and the IDF reported that at least 10 other top-ranking commanders of the Radwan force were either killed or injured in the attack. In addition, Sky News in Arabic also reported that in addition to Akil and those other people who were killed, the deputy leader of Iran's Quds force, Mohammad Reda, was also killed in the attack. I will say, if that is the case, that will also be a major escalation between Israel and Iran. However, that report has not been substantiated anywhere else that I could find, at least in the first hours after the attack. We will find more about that if that is confirmed in the coming days. Again, right now that was reported only in Sky News in Arabic. This attack marks the highest profile assassination of a Hezbollah operative since the assassination of Fuad Shukr at the end of July, and is another sign of the escalatory tactics that the IDF has undertaken over the past week. As a reminder, on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, thousands of Hezbollah communication devices detonated simultaneously in two different waves of attack, reportedly killing over 35 people and injuring over 3,500, the vast majority of whom were Hezbollah operatives. I will say here, if you want to hear more about those attacks, check out the previous videos that I uploaded both on Tuesday and Wednesday, where I analyzed what we know about those attacks much more in depth. Israeli estimates published suggested that many more Hezbollah operatives were killed in those detonations and that Hezbollah is hiding the true numbers. The Saudi Al-Hadith also reported that at least 500 Hezbollah operatives have lost their eyesight in those different detonations. According to the Lebanese Health Ministry, in today's airstrikes in the Dahya region, 14 people were killed and over 66 were injured. In addition to these high-profile events, it's also important to note that the ongoing quote-unquote regular attacks between the sides have also been continuing at an escalating rate over the last days. Hundreds of rockets, missiles, and drones have been fired by Hezbollah into northern Israel in the past 2 days, and scores of IDF airstrikes, in one case reportedly targeting over 100 Hezbollah launching sites simultaneously, have been carried out across southern Lebanon. Shortly after the assassination today, sources in Israel confirmed that this is part of a new approach that Israel is undertaking. Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant stated that the newest levels of escalation and attacks against Hezbollah are going to continue until Israeli civilians can safely return to their homes in the north. I remind everyone that at the beginning of the week, the Israel cabinet officially voted to change the aims of the war, adding to those aims the safe return of Israeli civilians who have been evacuated from northern Israel since the war began almost a year ago. Similarly, today Barak Ravid, who is a journalist for Israel's Ynet and also among others CNN and Axios, reported that senior Israeli security officials also confirmed on Friday that Israel has come to the conclusion that a resolution to the situation in northern Israel will not be possible without an escalation that breaks the current stalemate, and by current I mean over the last 11 months, and thus Israel has made the decision to gradually quote-unquote remove the gloves and carry out these escalations vis-a-vis Hezbollah, either leading towards an explosion and full-on war, or to some sort of diplomatic resolution. With regards to those options, on Thursday, Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah gave a speech relating to the detonation of the communication devices. He confirmed that the movement sees Israel as responsible for those attacks and threatened that Hezbollah's retaliation will be surprising. He also seemingly related to statements that were made in Israel that the escalations can end if Hezbollah accepts a U.S. diplomatic proposal with regards to how there will be a resolution and a calming down of Israel's northern front or Lebanon's southern front. Hassan Nasrallah stated in a quote, "We have had offers to end the war, but we tell Netanyahu and Gallant and the Israeli army. The Lebanese front will not end until the war on Gaza ends," and he later added, "You will not manage to return your northern civilians to their homes no matter what you do. I defy you. The only way you'll be able to do that, like we said on October 8th, is to stop the war in Gaza." End quote. Now, in a moment of analysis, I'm going to say that we can learn two things from Nasrallah's various statements. First, he is again linking the Hezbollah IDF escalations directly to the ongoing war in Gaza, seemingly shutting the door on any diplomatic resolution that would isolate the situation between the IDF and Hezbollah. At the same time, however, we can also learn that Nasrallah is indicating that if it were up to him, the current escalation could end at any point, and he is indicating that he does not, quote-unquote, want to let this front spiral out of control and become its own war. He wants it constantly linked to the situation in Gaza. Therefore, theoretically, if there was a ceasefire in Gaza, as far as he's concerned, the front in southern Lebanon can go silent any minute. Now, again, it's important to note, the speech was given before today's assassination. Everything can change at any point, but all I'm suggesting is the fact that Nasrallah is tying the ongoing escalations to the situation in Gaza, on the one hand, shuts the door towards any resolution, but on the other hand, also seemingly suggests, but I am willing to call a ceasefire at any point that there's a ceasefire in Gaza. Nasrallah is not taking this to be an ongoing war on his own. However, it's also important to remember that in light of Israel's seeming new strategy of increasing escalations, it may just be a matter of days before the situation nonetheless does spiral out of control. Obviously, I'll continue to report as things develop. Meanwhile, while all eyes are on the northern front of Israel and southern front of Lebanon, the fighting in Gaza continues. Just to give a taste, in the past few days there have been reports of intensifying airstrikes that were carried out throughout the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, specifically in the Zaytun region of Gaza City. In the southern parts of Gaza, fighting also continues in Rafah, despite the IDF announcements that the Rafah division has been dismantled, while both the IDF and the Al-Qassam brigades reporting intensive fighting in the areas of Tel Sultan. In addition, on September 17th, the IDF assassinated Ahmed Aisha Saleh al-Hashash, who was the head of rocket fire for the Palestinian Islamic Jihad in the areas of Han Yunis and Rafah. That attack took place in the Al-Mawasi humanitarian zone. In addition to that, the ongoing fighting in Tel Sultan also claimed the lives of 4 IDF soldiers who were reportedly killed from a detonation of a structure they were in Tel Sultan. Once again, I am not focusing this summary on what is going on in the Gaza Strip. I'm simply bringing the highlights as a reminder that intensifying fighting is still going on there, while all eyes are on the northern front. And finally, 2 pieces of political news that I'm going to end with. On September 18th, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution that was put forth by the Palestinian delegation. With an overwhelming majority, the resolution calls for an Israeli evacuation from all Palestinian territories within a year from when that resolution was adopted, and a weapons embargo on Israel, quote, in events that it is likely that those weapons will be used in the Palestinian territories, end quote. Clearly, most of the IDF activity, at least prior to the war, is within the Palestinian territories, so calling for weapons embargo on Israel, if those weapons might be used in Palestinian territories, is tantamount to saying there will have to be a weapons embargo on Israel in most cases. The resolution also calls for committees to be established in order to monitor this process. Now, it's important to note that technically this resolution is not binding. The UN Security Council would have to vote and adopt it in order to have it be enforced. However, the committees that are supposed to monitor the situation are likely to be established, and this is likely to result in increasing international pressure over the coming year, both on Israel as well as on weapons exporters to Israel, in order to abide by the UN resolution. Already later on that same day, Germany announced that it is suspending new licenses of exporting weapons to Israel. Similar moves are also being considered by the United Kingdom. Again, right now those countries are doing it in order to abide by the General Assembly, but the General Assembly cannot actually enforce this, but it remains to be seen how this will possibly impact the trajectory of the war as it continues. In addition to this, still on the international front, Israel submitted today its official objection to the International Criminal Court, the ICC, formally stating that the court has no jurisdiction to issue arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and for Israeli Defense Minister Gallant. As a reminder, the chief prosecutor of the ICC has requested that the court issue arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant, alongside warrants to arrest also the Hamas leaders Ismail Haniyeh, Yahya Sinwar, and Mohammed Def. I remind everyone that Haniyeh and Def have been assassinated since then. However, the court is still deliberating the prosecutor's request for arrest warrants against Netanyahu, Gallant, and Yahya Sinwar. Like the United States, Israel is not a party to the Rome Treaty and therefore is not part of the ICC's jurisdiction. However, importantly, the Palestinian Authority is, which is the grounds upon which the prosecutor is investigating war crimes and crimes against humanity that have been committed with regards to the ongoing war. In its objection, Israel challenged the jurisdiction of the court on the grounds that Israel is not part of the Rome Treaty. However, it also added a second objection, saying that the court is violating the principle of complementarity, that is the principle that states that if a country has an independent court system that investigates violations of international law, then that local court supersedes and nullifies the jurisdiction of the international court. Israel stating because it has an independent court system, the ICC does not have jurisdiction on this matter. It remains to be seen how that develops. The court is currently deliberating, issuing those arrest warrants, and the court will give its decision possibly in the coming weeks. Obviously, I'll report more on that when any news develops on that front. Those are my highlights from the past several days. If you find these reports informative, please do remember to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications if you want to know when reports come out. Please send them on to anyone you think might be interested in the war. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I'm Alon Burstein. I'm a visiting assistant professor and Israel Institute fellow in the Department of Political Science at Tufts University. Thanks for watching.